The third image comes from scene 1 and scene 4, which is really the story part of the book of Job. The middle part of the book of Job, scenes 2 and 3, Job and the friends, Job and God, is more of kind of a high courtly epic poem. But the beginning and the end is more of a story. And as I said, it's a story that largely focuses on the relationship between the Satan and God. Now remember, I said I was going to say why I call him the Satan. The reason is because this figure must necessarily be distinguished from the later Jewish and Christian idea of the devil. The devil is evil. The devil rules these demons, has horns and a red suit and a long pointy tail, and he's always trying to destroy and undermine the works of God. And this figure isn't exactly the same. The Satan. The word Satan is a Hebrew word, means opponent or adversary. And it's a title. It's not his name. And he's not really evil. He's still depicted as a loyal servant in God's court. He's still on speaking terms with God. And he still seems to live in the same place that God lives. So he's a little different. The Satan. He's still welcome in the divine presence. But there's something about him that irks us. He's so cynical. He always believes the worst in people. He always suspects their motives. Never believes that people are what they seem to be, what they appear to be on the surface. He's kind of like God's spy, God's CIA man on the earth. He's always checking us out and reporting back to the king about what people are doing. But there's more to it than that. You have to listen very carefully to their conversation, and you sense some other aspects to their relationship. This is chapter 1, verse 8. The Lord said to the Satan, "Have you noticed my servant Job? There is no one like him on earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and shuns evil." I don't know about you, but I hear a wee bit of insecurity in that. When somebody is arguing so strongly and so forcefully for the moral character of a particular person, the first reaction I have is, what is he trying to prove? Why even bother if you're so certain about the loyalty of this figure? Why bother testing it? The Satan answered, "Does Job not have good reason to fear God? Why, it is you who have fenced him round, him and his household and all that he has. You have blessed his efforts so that his possessions spread out in the land. But lay your hand upon all that he has, and he will surely blaspheme you to your face." And the Lord replied to the adversary, to Satan, "See, all that he has is in your power. Only do not lay a hand on him." Now, I mentioned earlier that in the wager, in the contest between God and the Satan, God wins. The Satan said, if you do all these things, he will blaspheme you to your face. He did all these things, and Job did not blaspheme God to his face. 1 for Yahweh, 0 for Satan. However, what if the Satan's intention was not really to prove Job an evil man, but rather his intention was to trick God into destroying Job? How could he do that? God had built this hedge around Job, and nothing could penetrate it. Job was a blessed man. The only way that Satan could get at Job was to trick God into letting down the shields, so that Satan could move in and destroy this individual, this good individual. And if you accept the Satan's motivations as being something like that, then in fact the Satan won. Because here God had this wonderful choice servant, so wonderfully loyal to him, and all of a sudden he's being afflicted with all these horrible maladies. Some of that comes out in the second dialogue between them, and absolutely astounding exchange, especially in the words that are used. Chapter 2, verse 3. The Lord said to the Satan, "Have you noticed my servant Job? There is no one like him on earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and shuns evil. He still keeps his integrity, even though you have incited me against him to destroy him for no good reason." Two absolutely astounding words that are used in that last line. The first one is incited. Who incited who? The Satan incited God. There's a line in the Talmud, which is a Jewish series of reflections on religious issues in Scripture, where the rabbis say, were it not written in the Bible, it would be impossible to say God is like a man whom someone tries to incite and who is in the end incited. The Satan incites God to do something that God would not have wanted to do. The second astounding word is the Hebrew word chinam, which is translated in my Bible as for no good reason. Can you imagine that? God is saying, I didn't mean to do it. I didn't have any good reason to do it. You just kind of twisted my arm and forced me and tricked me into doing it. It's been compared to somebody who has a really loyal dog, and he makes a bet with a friend of his. I'll bet if I beat that dog to within an inch of his life, he still won't bite me. What kind of a God is it to treat his friends so? I call this image of God, this third image of God, if you will forgive me, God the buffoon. Or an alternate term I've used, God the patsy. God the sucker. God who gets drawn in by an obviously more sophisticated and more intelligent figure who could twist him and manipulate him and make him do whatever he wants. It goes on further, though, even more disturbing. Because after he does this thing, he petulantly and childishly blames the Satan for making him do it. And if that wasn't bad enough, you know what happens afterwards? The Satan makes him do it again. He just says, you've incited me to do this for no good reason. And the Satan says, well, you didn't do it all the way. I mean, you haven't touched his health. And the Satan says, okay, one more time, but this is the last time. What kind of a God is depicted in the book of Job? God the buffoon. Satan tricks God into destroying his favorite subject and then blames the Satan for making him do it. I mean, we've all Flip Wilson a few years ago, the devil made me do it, the devil made me do it. I never thought I'd hear from the lips of God saying, the devil made me do it. One more image. This one I call God the bully. It's found in Job's response to his friends, also in scene 2. Job depicts God, Job describes God as cruel and demonic. Chapter 6, verse 4, for the arrows of the Almighty are in me. My spirit absorbs their poison. God's terrors are arrayed against me. Thus picturing the sickness and the poison arrows, his life is soaking up their venom. Job accuses God of immorality. Chapter 9, verses 22 through 24. He destroys the blameless and the guilty. When suddenly a scourge brings death, he mocks as the innocent fail. The earth is handed over to the wicked one. He covers the eyes of its judges. If not he, then who? That last line, so strong. If not he, then who? He accuses God of injustice, of attending to Job just for the purpose of killing him. God, he says, takes pleasure in the sufferings of innocent people. God is a capricious tyrant, a corrupt judge, a wild beast who has torn his flesh, and a ruthless warrior. When you see it this way, the speeches of Yahweh, the speeches of God at the end, take on a whole new character. Rather than being a presentation of God as a majestic thunderer, they further underscore and strengthen the image of God as a bully. He doesn't answer Job's question. What was Job's question? Job's question was, why are you doing this to me, God, seeing that I'm innocent? So what does God do? He says, shut up. You're not God. I am. Who do you think you are? Asking me questions. God, the bully. This God, using the words of Jeremiah, seduces, overpowers, and dominates his subjects, but he does not respect them. 4 images I've presented to you. God the majestic thunderer, God the enforcer, God the buffoon, God the bully. Now I want to talk about some of the implications of what we've just done here. Rather disturbing stuff, I think.